Right now on the National Weather Desk, after the storms, from tornado damage to rising floodwaters, millions of people face a long cleanup this morning. Our team of reporters and meteorologists have you covered. From Kentucky.
The water was up to my thigh, ice cold.
To Tennessee.
Went over the house and just took out all the trees in the front yard.
Arkansas and more.
Residents say this is the worst flooding that they've ever seen.
Also, the public relations problem facing NOAA.
And if we are not communicating these things, then we're doing everybody a disservice.
And why a months-old wildfire is still burning in South Carolina.
Sand actually burns and melts, and then it cools off.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
And a very good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm WJLA senior meteorologist Brian Vandegraff. Well, the powerful tornadoes and ferocious flooding of the past week has now claimed the lives of at least 24 people. Those victims include children and first responders. At least 10 of those deaths happened in Tennessee. President Trump approved emergency disaster declarations for the state, along with Arkansas and Kentucky. This morning, more than 13 million people are under flood warnings across multiple states, with the bulk in Kentucky and southern Indiana. This morning, teams have across the region hit hardest by this latest natural disaster. Our teams are starting off in northern Kentucky, where heavy rains sent this Ohio River to its highest point in nearly 28 years. The Kentucky River is also flooding, and a sub-freezing temperature last night are making recovery efforts even more challenging. We have two reports from the region, starting with David Winter, just across the Ohio River from Cincinnati.
Luckily, it's not football season. Here in the Ludlow-Bromley area, the river got the best of not only the high school football field, but also people's homes and businesses.
The Lagoon Saloon is now aptly named Covered in Water. The owner is using waders to salvage what he can. Those who live on the river say the few weeks of pain every 7 to 10 years is worth the years of pleasure in between flooding.
We're just going to wait till good Lord takes it back out. When he gets finished putting it up here, he can take it back when he's finished.
We know where the water's going to be, so when it gets close to 58 feet, we start moving everything out. We make sure we have all our supplies here, food, etc. And then we just open the garage doors and wait for the water to come up.
With the river receding, all that's left to do now is cleanup, repairs, and recovery.
It's hard to see, you know.
Charles True has spent most of his life in Monterey.
97 flood, I boated through the town.
True has had to resort to that mode of transportation once again.
Is this your only way to get in and out, though, is boating?
That's the only way, unless I got a helicopter.
While True's home is high enough to avoid getting flooded, he's had to make one round trip a day by boat to get supplies.
If I boat through from here and go through the center of town, it probably takes me 30 minutes.
The high water is keeping emergency crews busy.
We've evacuated somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70 people. I'd say that's a conservative estimate.
Monday was much calmer than over the weekend.
We're making plans and preparations for what's coming up, and that's going to be making sure that everyone that needs it has food and water and all the essentials as it stands right now.
I want to do the best I can to help everybody, because I know everybody in the town.
Just a couple of blocks from the state capitol, Mary Maxwell looks at the water that's invaded her Frankfort neighborhood. The Kentucky River burst out of its banks, leaving behind flooded basements, flooded houses, flooded businesses, flooded streets, and in Maxwell's case, a flood of tears.
Tears and just the hard-earned money, my parents, and I don't know if I can do this.
Maxwell and her sister have spent most of their lives in the house that once belonged to their parents. She says the flood of '78 came up to their porch. This one, however, came inside.
The water was up to my thigh, ice cold.
Maxwell says if it weren't for a helpful neighbor, the waters might have carried her away.
Next, we head south into Tennessee, which is facing recovery from both powerful tornadoes and flooding. The National Weather Service confirms at least 2 tornadoes touched down in the state over the weekend. The winds tearing down trees and damaging homes. As for the floods, people are still waiting for the rivers to recede. Madeline Nolan is in Clarksville for us.
This is just devastating. City officials do say that more than 30 roads are closed today, including the one where we are standing here this morning because of these high floodwaters. And that means that a lot of people are still unable to get back into their homes. The Cumberland River crested at 50.7 feet, well above the flood stage, and it is expected to stay high through midweek. But for some neighbors like Candace Payne, the continued flooding threat is leaving them feeling desperate for some city action.
Buy me out. Like, this is now 3 times in less than a year. Nobody should have to deal with this. We had to be evacuated by boat last time. When I say I've lost everything and it's a repeated thing, my house is down to the studs and the cinder block downstairs. I can't live here, but I'm still paying for a mortgage and still paying property taxes.
City officials say that they are monitoring these conditions closely, and they're also working to keep shelters stocked with supplies.
Cleanup crews have their hands full in Sumner County. The weekend storm snapped dozens of trees, high winds ripping some right from the roots. Kathy Wheeler says over 20 trees came crashing down on her property alone.
Mowed down all the trees, went over the house, and just took out all the trees in the front yard too.
Wheeler says 2 trees in her yard were over 200 years old.
It's something you can't get back. You can replace everything else.
But the damage is adding up. Part of the Wheelers' lakefront home couldn't withstand the force of Mother Nature. The family's boat and their boat deck set right here. The storms picked the boat deck up, turned the boat upside down, and now it sits right there. Not only that, but the roof that was on top of it is now in their neighbor's yard on top of their house.
You live on adrenaline for the first 24 hours, and then you start to calm down a little bit, and reality sits in, and you start making the phone calls, and God, this is a mess.
A viewer in Tennessee captured one of the tornadoes-warned storms just west of Nashville. You can see just how dark and ominous the storm was before it moved over Music City on Saturday afternoon. We shared this video on our Facebook page for anyone who wants to get a closer look. Arkansas has also been hit hard by storms the last week, and several people have been injured and one person was killed. Those storms brought strong winds, tornadoes, and even severe flooding. Many trees and power lines were downed, and thousands are still without power this morning, while other neighborhoods, especially those closer to Memphis, are waiting for floodwaters to recede. Griffin Demarius has more.
Saturday, the city of West Memphis saw over 13 inches of rain to cap off a week of severe weather. And after dozens of rescues and hundreds of gallons of water being pumped, there's still some neighborhoods caught in floodwater.
It's crazy to say, but some people have been pulling out their boats, which is something that, we try to make the good thing out of bad things.
Residents say this is the worst flooding that they've ever seen, and they're hoping the city will take measures to ensure this neighborhood is flood-proof before the next generational storm.
We most definitely need more trenches or something like that, maybe deeper so it wouldn't flood the residents so easily.
Arkansas, utilizing over 2,200 linemen just over the past few days, in addition to help from other states.
So we have worked multiple rounds of storms, and Saturday we were down to like our last 4,000 customers restoring, and then the next round of storms came through.
With strong winds and saturated grounds resulting in trees falling onto power lines, leaving over 71,000 customers without power.
We're replacing a little over 600 broken poles, 1,200 spans of wire just across the metropolitan area. So that's a massive amount of locations that we're having to go to and repair.
Though much of it has been restored, there's still more work to be done.
And we're expecting to get the majority on today. In the heavily impacted areas, where we're still having to cut our way in, or the roads are impacting, or we still have areas that are flooded, the guys are used to it, but it is a lot of sacrifice.
The community of Aurora, Indiana is waiting for the Ohio River to recede this morning. Much of downtown flooded again, leaving businesses under feet of water. Rescue crews are on standby and to help people trapped by the flood. It's the largest flood in this town in at least 6 years. Coming up on the National Weather Desk, a wildfire in South Carolina has been smoldering for nearly a month. We'll show you just why. Plus tips on how you can stay safe, even in severe weather. Well, at least 100 tornadoes were reported during the latest spate of severe weather over the past week. It's important to know how to stay safe before twisters occur. And part of that safety starts with knowing weather terminology. Meteorologist AJ Mastrangelo explains.
Parts of the southeastern United States now heading into peak tornado season. You can see here the month of April, this dark shade of red is where we typically see 10+ reports of tornadoes. Now we continue into May and June, and of course temperatures rise throughout parts of the northern plains, the northeast, and we start to see that tornado threat gradually kind of shift further and further northwards. Let's talk about tornado watch versus warning. A watch essentially means you got to have a plan in place. It's a 50% chance of confidence that we'll be seeing a warning in that area. When you do get a warning, that means there's a high likelihood of a tornado within the given area based on radar, indicated rotation, or an actual tornado sighting. Now, when we do get a tornado warning, you want to make sure you're keeping that TV on, or a good way to get alerts, of course, NOAA weather radio. And of course, now we do typically see those Android devices as well as iOS devices providing those emergency alerts. Now, the bigger question is, where do you go if you are under a tornado warning? Well, if you're in a car, definitely get in a sturdy building. And the best place to be if you're in a sturdy building is either the center area, really not those exterior rooms, the interior rooms. And if you do have a basement, that is the most definite place you want to be, covering yourself with blankets or mattress for additional protection.
Well, in South Carolina, a wildfire that started more than a month ago is still not fully contained. The reasons for this still smoldering fire are under the surface. Andrew James explains.
The high heat and flames of a wildfire. In March, Carolina forest neighbors were just feet away from disaster. Throughout the month, it continued to burn, blanketing neighbors in smoke.
It just kind of smolders, and that's why you see the smoke coming up. And it's problematic, and one of the reasons why it's probably lasting so long is because there is so much organic matter down below that it's keeping it smoldering.
That's Dr. Dara Park, a soil scientist with Clemson University. She says for Carolina bays, if not constantly managed with fire, the plant life and decomposing matter can allow heat to dig under the surface.
What you see above ground, that biomass, the trees, the trunks, the grasses, if you took all that biomass and took a quarter of it, that's how much is actually underground too. So if you have long stems or long roots down below, then that can act as fuel.
But because you have land near the coast mixed with organic soils and sand, she says that could add another hindrance for fighting the fire.
When the fire does get underground, it can actually burn the mineral itself. And most of the soils we're talking about here are very sandy in texture. So that sand actually burns and melts, and then it cools off. And then what do you have? You have a big slide, okay? So it can actually get stuck underneath that soil.
She says as long as some oxygen can find its way into these pockets, the low burning fire can creep not inches, but several feet below the top layer.
It just is a whole different dynamic than what we see in the rest of the state.
It's a dynamic landscape that may encourage extended impacts from wildfires, but can also bounce back, just as state officials predicted days within the height of the firefight.
It'll green back up this spring, actually, and probably be in pretty decent shape.
Well, according to Save the Bay, the number of seals in Rhode Island waters has increased in the last few years. And that has beachgoers in the area wondering if more seals means more sharks. To find out, John Perrick went to the Atlantic Shark Institute looking for answers.
It's the big question going into the summer.
Do more seals equal more sharks? Not typically, because there's not a lot of shark species out there that will eat seals.
John Dodd is the executive director of the Atlantic Shark Institute. He follows sharks for a living, including great whites.
But for the most part, the white shark is the predominant shark when it comes to attacks on seals.
But Dodd says the great whites in our waters tend to be young. He says the older and larger great whites only pass through Rhode Island as they head to Cape Cod's waters where there's more seals.
The larger ones, they come cruising right through. They're going up to Cape Cod because there's 50,000 seals there and more. So that's where they want to be.
Save the Bay recently counted 755 seals in our waters. Dodd says he doesn't think that number is large enough to see an increase in great whites in our area. But each day, he's still monitoring the shark activity.
Even though we're seeing this seal population increase, so far we don't think we have too much to worry about.
Bottom line, Dodd says an increase in seals should not be a reason to stay away from swimming this summer.
If you're going to go for a swim, you're going to go to the beach for the day, go for a swim, go to the beach. We don't see that there's right now any increased risk based on the seal population that we can keep track of that we see, but we're watching it.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration conducts life-saving scientific work in weather, climate, and ocean systems, but many Americans don't know exactly what NOAA does. This week on our podcast, Emily Gracie is joined by 2 former NOAA employees to discuss the agency's public relations problem. Here's a clip of the episode.
It's really important information, and if we are not communicating these things, then we're doing everybody a disservice.
So what's the answer? How do you think the best way to get that information to the public is?
I think that the change that needs to happen is the scientists' view on communication as seen as just as important as the science, seen as just as important as the data collection is the communication of those data.
Yeah, I mean, it's proven itself with hurricane forecasting.
Right.
As good as it's gotten, as amazing and accurate as it is, it's no good if people aren't getting the information. And like Hurricane Helene, you've got whole communities that did not get the information.
When I started communicating at NOAA and becoming a spokesperson, I was a nobody at NOAA. I was a contractor who's just in a little wing of NOAA. And I just like doing communication work. And just the way that things like happened to path, I got on this weird path to where I ended up. In the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, if I did that, there are probably some excellent science communicators out there that just haven't gotten the opportunity within NOAA to shine because of the way we communicate or the way we funnel interviews to people. It only goes to this person who doesn't even like it to begin with, but he has to do it because he's of a certain rank, and that's how it goes. And that person who's really, really good never gets a chance to shine. I think it's important to have a wider range of people who are speaking about a topic, but also basically be able to communicate this in a way that is understandable to people who are trying to make a decision. You know, especially when it comes to severe weather or things that could really impact people, you want to come across as a trustworthy person. And I feel like sometimes we think trustworthy means we have to like up the science, when a lot of times trustworthy just means authentic. It just means the person you're speaking to thinks that they can imagine you as the friend they got a drink with or something like that.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this conversation about NOAA and communication, be sure to listen to this week's full episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. And as we head to break, some of the beautiful sights from Tulip Town in Washington State. Well, hard to believe it was just 1 year ago today that the nation paused to experience the total solar eclipse. We brought you extensive coverage that day as people across the country watched the sun in awe. Here's a look back.
There it is.
Corona!
We got a corona!
Oh, it's back. It's back.
Right there. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, that answered that question.
So lucky. So lucky right
There's
now.
the emotion.
People are cheering. You can hear them here around me. Everyone's so excited we're able to actually see the moon right now. We are at Totality right now. You can see my photographers got it on us. We have everyone taking photos, taking videos.
I've never seen anything like this, guys.
We have talked about this for years. Wow. And the moment is even better than you could have anticipated. Look at that. It's just amazing.
You can see it's gotten incredibly dark, almost as if it is sunset here in Carbondale. You can see it is absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm WJLA Senior Meteorologist Brian Vandegraff. Make it a great day. And as we leave you with views of Kilauea and Hawaii erupting for the 17th time since September. Wow. Have a great one.